Hi there, guys, and welcome to episode 9 of the Your Progress is Our Passion podcast. This episode is all about the lost art of competition. Now, I think this one's going to be relevant to a couple of groups of people who are listening. First one is parents with kids in school, and the second one is anyone who struggled with competitive sports and things along those of that nature whilst they were in school themselves. I fall into both of those categories. I was having a chat with one of my clients earlier today, and that really spurred on this thought process about how we have started to deal with competition in school nowadays. In fact, the idea of like competition being removed entirely, or participation medals or 10th place trophies and all that sort of thing. And how it's got to a point where kids who are good with certain grades on maths, English, that sort of thing, are rewarded by having the grade, which, allows them to kind of go to better college courses and ultimately better university. However, for kids who their expertise is in an area of sport, they're almost penalised and having that taken away from them. Now, we're all different human beings. We all excel at different skills in life, and to kind of say, okay, we're going to put a grading system on one thing and not a grading system on the other, in my opinion, is just a little bit messed up. Now, I can sort of empathize with why it's there, because I was definitely one of those people that in school I was useless at sports. I was useless at, particularly at team sports, and as a result of that, I was always picked last, and that sort of thing, on thrown in goal for football. I went to a school in Liverpool, so it was, as I said, footy or nothing. There was no other sports really. It was nothing but footy. But as a result, I was picked last and put in goal because, as far as everyone was concerned, I was useless on a pitch. Now, that's not creating an environment where I'm actually going to get any better out on that pitch, is it? It's also not going to create a situation where I'm motivated or inspired to want to get any better. There are certain people in this world that we relate to competition in different ways, and I think it's very much kind of like one side or the other. There's some people that when they're bad at something and they get this sort of underdog mentality, and then that actually pushes them to go on and excel at things, and or to outwork the people that have got the natural talent. And there's the expression that hard work will always beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. And there's definitely that side of things for people where if they get put in that situation, then they actually, will work harder to become the thing that they're struggling with. But equally, there are people that become demoralized by that level of competition, by, a level of participation where you're not even getting a look in, or when you do actually get on the ball, someone comes and takes it away from you before you've got any time to actually develop. Again, just using football as an example there. I'm personally a big fan of creating an environment that breeds success. So if you're the type of person that does find adversity and competition, and maybe even unfair competition, to be sort of a motivating factor, then you may thrive in that situation. But a lot of people face it the opposite way. They become demotivated by the competition, or their inability to actually get any headway. They're not inspired to go on and practice that sport on their own. And I think as a child particularly, I definitely fell into that latter category. As an adult, I'm maybe a little bit different now, because people say to me all the time, long levers at Olympic lifting aren't made to go together. And I'm just like, but I love Olympic lifting, so I'm going to do it. Yes, I am 6'2". The bar has to travel a lot further, but I love the sport, so I'm going to do it. And what I want to talk about now is kind of the combination of, for parents out there, or for anyone who wants to actually take up a sport at the later stage of life, and you want to kind of get involved in that competitive side of things. And this is kind of inspired mainly by my own journey through sports. Apart from basketball, whilst I was in school, I never really enjoyed team sports. They always had that whole, everyone was so much better than me, and as a result, I just didn't get a chance. Basketball, I had the height on my side, And we'd also play games like horse and things like that, where you take your turn taking a shot. But in a competitive game environment, I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the most agile. At the time, I was probably about 18 stone when I was 15 years old. And as a result, team sports just did not work for me. But if I kind of look back, and again, this is something I've only recently realised, if I look back at the sports that I did make work for me, as a teenager, shot put was one of them. Then there was nothing else really as a teenager, and it wasn't until I got a little bit older, and then the next thing I took up was tennis, and the thing after that I took up was rock climbing, then there was running, and then there was Muay Thai after that, Thai kickboxing, and now after that it's been weightlifting, and now finally the most recent one I've picked up is archery. If we look at all of these sports, they're all solo, what I'd refer to as solo sports. Now, if you think about tennis or Muay Thai, yeah, sure, you are one-on-one with someone else, but everything in there is about your own ability as an individual, nothing to do with how you work as part of a team. And this is something I'm beginning to kind of really think of in terms of, for example, for my eldest son. Now, I've going back to that original analogy of kids performing in different areas. I've got two kids. My youngest one is extremely sporty and he's okay academically, whereas my eldest one is extremely good academically, but not so good sport-wise. Now, I just think we've not found the right sport for him yet, because when he goes rock climbing, he really gets into that, and I think there's a lot to be said for sports where the competition isn't you versus someone else, or you versus and a team versus another team. It's you versus you. It's you becoming the best version of you, bettering yourself, because we're most motivated when we see regular improvements, and seeing regular improvements in a team sport is difficult because it's the whole team needs to improve in order to kind of get there. But seeing level of improvement in an individual sport is a lot more possible. So if I look back at all of those, we've got there was even bowling, I guess, before that. I've forgotten what's the tennis. That was okay. The person I was playing against, again, I wasn't the most agile, but I had good power. So I could put power into my shots. I did well on my own serve. And things like archery now, it's very much, what can I change about me? Last week, I will admit that Alona, my wife, completely whomped me at archery. She's picking it up a lot quicker than I am. However, if I compare to that could be potentially demotivating. However, if I compare myself to where I was 4 weeks ago, then the motivation's back, and I want to strive to do better. In a way, there's a bit of competition there, and I would like to get a little bit better than Alona, but not too much. Otherwise, then it'll go the opposite way, and her motivation will be down. But this is very much, I think, why I really gravitated towards weightlifting. This huge thing there where it's just you versus your previous number. And even when I go into competition, I'm going back into one in 4 weeks' time, it's going to be me versus my previous number. It's not a case of me versus the other people in my weight category. I don't know what they're going to lift. I can guarantee that they'll lift more than I do because I'm still relatively new to the sport. But for me, going into there, I've got an idea. I know what I lifted in my last competition, and I want to beat that at this next one. And there's that level of personal mastery. And the reason I'm talking about all this is, I guess, to encourage people who perhaps, like myself, have got a child who is struggling with being involved in sports, and team sports maybe not necessarily being the right choice for that person. And suggesting that perhaps looking into individual sports where you can encourage that child to be versus themselves rather than versus someone else, improving a score in bowling, improving a score, your shot strength in archery, improving how much weight you can lift. Yes, weightlifting is good for children. Improving, your 100-meter run time or your 5K run time. All of these different things where you can show regular progress and help motivate the person. And this isn't just for children. If you're an adult and you want to get involved in competitive sport, maybe potentially look at something where you can compete versus yourself. Because ultimately, any sport we do, some people can just go and play it or do it for the fun of it, but the competitive nature of it is generally what inspires and motivates the majority of us. So if you're going to want to pick something, you're going to want to have a few different milestones, a few different metrics on what you are sort of testing. If you go and take up golf, for example, a huge one, like huge sport for personal mastery there, is you are wanting to bring your handicap down. You're wanting to do a course that you've done before in less strokes. There's all that sort of thing. It's never really about beating the person that you're playing with. It's about improving on that. Like when I used to do bowling, one of these things that's going to annoy me for the rest of my life is the highest score I ever got at bowling was 199. Had a game where I'd missed 3 pins throughout the entire game up until the 10th frame, and then all I had to do was carry on in that way, and I missed 7 in the 10th frame. But bowling for me was something that I could go and play and know what my sort of rough average is, know what my best score ever is, and just try and beat that. I'm always just trying to beat what I did before. So I'm going to finish there, and just going to, again, put it out there as a suggestion. If you yourself have struggled with team sports in the past, or if you struggle, or you have a child who's struggling in school with team sports now, consider getting yourself or them involved in a solo sport or a 1v1 sport or something along those lines, because when you train on your own, you can't be picked last. So yeah, that's it. That's all I've got to say for today. As always, if you like this and you want other people to get involved, just give us a share. However you're watching or listening to this, if you're watching us on Facebook, a share on there, a like or a comment on YouTube, or post a link to your Facebook page. And if it's the podcast, I hope you're already subscribed, and maybe just give us a review on there and just tell us what you think. Your progress is our passion, as always, and I will see you next week, where I believe, speaking of golf, that I have Josh Carter, who is a golf coach, a strength and conditioning coach for golf, not to be mistaken with a golf coach, and he's going to be talking about development outside of your game, to developing areas outside of your game to develop your game. So thanks again, as always, and I'll see you guys soon. Ciao.